Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Before we jump in, if you enjoy getting into the details behind your favorite films, definitely hit that subscribe button and give this video a like.
It really helps us out.
It does. So today, we're focusing on the third movie in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We've got some great info shared from IMDb, plus other insights. And our mission today is really to dig deeper than just a plot summary.
Yeah, find out what makes this one stand out so much. Why do so many fans and critics see it as, well, a real high point in the franchise?
Exactly. We have a ton of background info to work with. There's the usual IMDb stuff, release dates, ratings, cast and crew lists, awards, trivia, always fun bits in there, user reviews, critic takes.
Technical specs, too, for the real film buffs.
Yeah.
And box office numbers, of course.
Right. But we also have a more detailed look at the whole production side. The plot, obviously, the direction by Alfonso Cuarón, the screenplay adaptation, how it was filmed, casting decisions.
Set design, costumes, post-production magic, that amazing soundtrack, even stuff about the dubbing process.
And then getting into the analysis, the style, the themes, how it was promoted and released. Our goal is to uncover those key things that gave this film its unique feel and why it still hits hard today.
And here's something to kick us off. Did you know the director, Alfonso Cuarón, hadn't actually read the Harry Potter books before he signed on?
Wow, really? That's kind of wild.
Yeah, makes you wonder how that fresh perspective maybe shaped the whole thing, you know?
Definitely something to think about. Okay, let's unpack this. First up, that unique tone and style. It felt like a real shift from the first two films, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A big shift. It got noticeably darker, more psychological, really started exploring those tricky adolescent years.
Critics definitely picked up on that darker feel, linking it to Sirius Black's storyline and just the overall sense of unease.
Spot on. And Cuarón's vision was key. He aimed for a much more naturalistic style, lots of wide-angle shots.
Right, using those to emphasize body language. And the environment itself almost felt like a character.
Exactly. Less reliance on constant close-ups compared to Columbus's films. He wanted you to see the characters in their world.
It's interesting how that connects to his other work, too. You sort of see threads from films like You Tu Mama Tambien or A Little Princess in there, right? Themes of identity.
Totally. That sense of finding yourself. Prisoner of Azkaban really becomes Harry's journey of self-discovery, grappling with his past, his parents. It's almost a rite of passage.
So with such a different approach, how did J.K. Rowling feel about it? Was she on board with Cuarón's vision?
Apparently, yes. She really praised his personal touch. She particularly liked the time travel sequences, which were visually very cool, and also the humor he wove in.
That's great to hear. Her approval must have meant a lot.
Yeah, it suggests she valued his interpretation, even if it wasn't a word-for-word adaptation.
Speaking of adaptation, let's talk about the changes from the book. Because there were more changes this time around, weren't there? Steve Kloves, the screenwriter, took more liberties.
He did, and that, predictably, got mixed reactions from the book purists. Some understood the need for changes for film, others missed certain details.
What were the main reasons for those bigger changes? Just the complexity of the plot.
That was a huge part of it. The Prisoner of Azkaban book has a pretty intricate plot, lots of threads, and they needed to fit it into a reasonable runtime. It ended up being 141 minutes, which was actually the shortest film yet at that point.
Which is funny, because the book is longer than the first two.
Exactly. Rowling herself seemed to get the difference between literary storytelling and cinematic needs, though. She understood you sometimes have to streamline things.
Can you give us some examples? What got cut or changed?
Well, the whole Quidditch Cup subplot resolution was basically skipped over in the film. Crookshank's role in helping Sirius was also downplayed quite a bit compared to the book.
Oh, right. I remember noticing that.
And there was some chronological shuffling of events to make the movie flow better. Plus, they created some new scenes, like Harry practicing magic under the covers at the Dursleys, which wasn't explicitly in the book, but felt true to the spirit.
So despite these changes, Rowling's overall take was positive. You mentioned she liked his touch.
Yeah, at the time of its release, she actually called Prisoner of Azkaban her favorite adaptation so far.
Wow, that's high praise. Really shows she appreciated the artistic choices.
Definitely. It suggests she valued the filmmaking vision over strict, literal faithfulness.
Let's dig into more of those directorial choices. We know Cuarón was initially hesitant. What actually convinced him?
It was his friend, Guillermo del Toro, another amazing director. Del Toro had apparently been considered too, but couldn't do it. He basically told Quaron, you have to do this, and pointed out the potential to explore that shift from childhood to adolescence. That clicked with Quaron.
That makes sense. And how did he work with the young actors Radcliffe, Watson, Grint, who were already established in their roles?
He had this really interesting approach. He asked them each to write an essay about their character, like from the character's point of view.
Oh, cool. How did that go?
Well, Emma Watson apparently turned in this detailed 16-page essay, very Hermione-like. Daniel Radcliffe wrote a solid one-page summary, and Rupert Grint.
Let me guess. Didn't hand one in.
Exactly. Perfectly wrong. Quaron also recommended films to Radcliffe like The 400 Blows to help him understand Harry's emotional state at that age.
That's brilliant. Were there any wild ideas Coran had that got shot down?
A couple, yeah. He apparently toyed with the idea of having Lilliputian-like characters, which Rowling felt didn't fit the world. He also suggested a graveyard on the Hogwarts grounds, but that was seen as maybe a bit too dark for that point in the series.
Interesting. And visually, we talked about the naturalism, but there was also that stronger Gothic feel to Hogwarts, right?
Yes, definitely. That was very intentional, reflecting the darker themes. It came partly from using different filming locations, moving away slightly from Onwit Castle towards more purely medieval Gothic architecture.
So more gargoyles, shadows, secret passages.
All of that. Bats, grotesque transformations like the Bogart scenes, it all added to that specific atmosphere.
Okay, casting. Huge changes here, too. Michael Gambon taking over as Dumbledore after Richard Harris sadly passed away. How did people react to Gambon's interpretation?
It was obviously a big deal for fans. Gambon brought a different energy, maybe a bit more intense. Some saw parallels to King Lear in his performance. He also apparently used a very subtle Irish accent sometimes as a quiet tribute to Harris.
That's a nice touch. And then the massive additions, Gary Oldman as Sirius Black.
Incredible casting. Oldman just has that intensity. He actually had input on Sirius's look, suggesting the long, messy hair. And Quaron designed those distinctive tattoos inspired by Russian prison gangs, apparently.
Wow, really adds to the backstory. And David Thewlis as Remus Lupin. Another perfect fit.
Thewlis really focused on that paternal bond Lupin forms with Harry. He brought such warmth, but also that underlying weariness and sadness. Quaron initially pictured Lupin as having sort of punkish traits, which Thewlis subtly worked in.
And we can't forget Emma Thompson as Trelawney.
Hilarious. She played her as someone so lost in the future she couldn't see the present. Just brilliant.
And Timothy Spall as Peter Pettigrew, making him so pathetic.
Oh, yeah. You just felt this mix of pity and disgust. Really effective performance.
Let's shift to the actual production. Where did they film besides the studios? Those Scotland locations are stunning.
They really are. Besides Leavesden Studios, they went back to the Scottish Highlands, Glenfinnan Viaduct for the Hogwarts Express, Glencoe, Lochshiel for the grounds, and the Black Lake. Just epic landscapes.
And they filmed in London too, right? For the night bus sequence.
Yeah, places like Palmer's Green, Borough Market, Lambeth Bridge. St. Paul's Cathedral was used too. That night bus sequence must have been a technical headache.
I bet. Any other major production challenges?
Well, there was actually a small fire on the Hogwarts Express set while filming in Scotland, caused some delays, and there was nearly a worker strike over pay, but they resolved it, thankfully.
Close call. And the animals. So many real animals used.
Oh, yeah. Owls, ravens, bats, Fang the Neapolitan Mastiff, Ripper the Bulldog, even the cat playing Crookshanks, Crackerjack. They apparently even used a pygmy hippo for one of the moving portraits.
A pygmy hippo. That's amazing.
Wow.
Stuart Crigg's production design continued to be incredible too, didn't it?
Absolutely foundational. He still used Rowling's original sketches as his Bible. He created new iconic sets like that wooden bridge. And existing sets were reimagined. Dumbledore's office became the astronomy tower room. The wand shop turned into Honeydukes.
And Hogsmeade itself.
They deliberately avoided making it look too twee or like a chocolate box village. More rustic, a bit worn. Quaron added touches like sugar skulls in Honeydukes, a nod to his Mexican heritage, and even a fountain inspired by the Mexican flag in a Hogwarts courtyard.
Those little details add so much. What about the visual effects? They really stepped up, especially with the creatures.
That was a big goal to surpass the effects in the first two films. The Dementors were a major focus. Quaron wanted them to feel ethereal, ghostly, not just physically menacing.
How did they achieve that?
They initially thought about using puppets underwater, believe it or not. But they ended up going with advanced CGI from ILM, working with the costume designer Janny T. Mime to get that flowing, decaying look.
And Buckbeak the Hippogriff must have been a huge undertaking.
Immense. It was a combination of animatronics and digital effects. Every shot was meticulously planned because it was so expensive to create. They worked with animal experts to figure out how a creature like that might actually move.
Did they build a full-size one?
They built a full-size animatronic for close interaction with the actors, plus partial models. They wanted him to look a bit awkward, almost teenage on land, but graceful in the air. There was even apparently an early VFX test where Buckbeak, well, relieved himself. Showing biological functions in digital creatures was pretty new then.
Huh. Okay, moving on swiftly. The soundtrack John Williams returned, right?
Yes, thankfully. But he didn't just rely on the old themes. Because the film's tone was so different, darker, he composed a lot of new material.
But kept Hedwig's theme, obviously.
Oh yeah, that's the signature. But key new themes included the Dementor music really chilling stuff like Apparition on the Train, then more introspective pieces like A Window to the Past. And of course, the playful, slightly spooky Double Trouble, inspired by Macbeth.
The score got a lot of praise, didn't it? Oscar nomination, too.
It did. Widely acclaimed, really captured that unique atmosphere. Some critics heard echoes of Tchaikovsky in there, a truly fantastic score.
And briefly, the dubbing, any interesting points there, especially for Spanish-speaking audiences?
Yeah, the process was quite different depending on the region. In Spain, most of the original voice actors returned, except for Ron's, apparently. But for the Latin American Spanish dub done in Mexico, they actually recast the main trio completely.
Oh, interesting. How did Cuarón feel about the dubs?
He was reportedly quite impressed with the quality, even though he wasn't always a fan of dubbing in general. He even got some well-known Mexican actors involved.
Good to know. Okay, let's dive into the themes. The coming-of-age aspect is impossible to miss.
Absolutely central. Harry, Ron, Hermione are clearly transitioning into adolescence. They're dealing with more complex emotions, introspection, disillusionment with adults sometimes. Cuarón himself said it was about finding your identity when internal fears feel bigger than external threats.
We see Harry's anger flare up, Hermione burying herself in studies, perhaps to mask other feelings, Ron's insecurities.
Yeah, and hints of that emerging tension within the trio, too. It feels very real to that stage of life. The whole film is layered with these adolescent anxieties and discoveries.
And fear is obviously a massive theme embodied by the Dementors.
Definitely. They're often interpreted as representations of depression or overwhelming fear. Lupin's lesson about using humor, the ridiculous charm, is so important. It's about confronting fear, though not necessarily eliminating it entirely. Harry still feels that fear, even when he triumphs.
There's also that theme of appearance versus reality, right?
Yep.
Who can you trust?
Big time. The whole Sirius Black storyline is built on that. Is he a villain or a victim? Pettigrew's betrayal. It really plays with your perceptions, make you question who the real enemies are. It has that almost Hitchcockian twist.
Were there specific cinematic influences Cuarón drew upon?
People have pointed to a few. The 400 Blows for the adolescent angst, maybe Bergman's The Seventh Seal for the mood, and the Dementors as a kind of personification of dread. Lord of the Rings for fantasy scope, perhaps Monty Python for some of the humor, and even German expressionist films like Nosferatu for the gothic visuals.
Any interesting critical interpretations or subtexts?
There were some. Critic Wesley Morris saw the Dementors and the general atmosphere as reflecting a kind of post-9/11 radical social paranoia, maybe even linking it to the Iraq War context. And philosopher Jean-Claude Milner suggested the Dursleys and Aunt Marge could be read as satire, possibly targeting Thatcherite politics, though that's quite an interpretation.
Fascinating how people can read different layers into it. Okay, wrapping up the production side, how was the film promoted and released?
Pretty standard, big blockbuster campaign, but well executed. Trailers online and in theaters, often attached to other huge films like Return of the King or Scooby-Doo 2, TV spots.
Did they do anything cool online?
Yeah, the official website was interactive, designed like the Marauders map, which was clever, lots of merchandise, of course, soundtrack, the EA video game, which is pretty popular.
And the premieres.
They had a test screening in Chicago, then the world premiere was June 4th, 2004. Big premieres in New York, London. Cuarón attended the one in Mexico City. They were serious about anti-piracy, too. Ushers in UK cinemas apparently wore special glasses to spot camcorders.
Wow. And it got an IMAX release, too.
Yeah, simultaneously, which really highlighted the film's visual scale.
Okay, let's try and synthesize all this.
Yeah.
Key takeaways. Prisoner of Azkaban really feels like a turning point for the whole film series, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It brought in that darker, more nuanced tone, showcased Cuarón's very distinct visual style. Even with the book changes, it was just so well received by critics and remains a huge fan favorite.
It's amazing how a director who wasn't initially steeped in the lore could bring such a unique and, frankly, beloved vision to life. It explored those complex themes, identity, fear, really compellingly.
And the character development for the trio took a big leap forward. It just felt more mature, more layered.
It really did. Which leads to a final thought. Considering how powerfully the film deals with those themes of identity and the turbulence of adolescence, how do you think those elements still resonate with audiences today? Even maybe with people who didn't grow up reading the books?
That's a great question. Because those feelings, figuring out who you are, facing your fears, dealing with complex relationships, they're pretty universal, aren't they? Perhaps timeless.
Something for everyone to chew on.
Yeah.
And now, speaking of great opportunities you won't want to miss, click the link in the video description to listen to a free audiobook with your Audible subscription.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to dive even deeper into the Harry Potter world, or really explore countless other stories. Definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. And before you go, please do subscribe to the channel and like this video for more deep dives into the topics you find interesting.
We really appreciate your support. Thanks for joining us today.